I'm Bob Haley. I own Haley Paint. My grandfather started what was Finneran and Haley in 1913. So I've been in the paint business for about 50 years, and you can tell by the look of me what it's done to me. So uh, we were in industrial coatings, made nail coatings, all kinds of. We made paint for DuPont. We made Krylon spray paint for Sherwin-Williams. So we've been involved in all kinds of automotive paints, industrial paints, and our favorite thing is shed builders because they're such a great, nice group of people. So in 2011, we changed our name to just Haley Paint and decided to just focus on shed builders and the portable building industry, which includes cabins. So. Um, I love the second line here. I don't know if any of you are from Lancaster or know Lapp Structures, but that was started by Amy Lapp many years ago. And his statement, which they have on their coffee mugs and everything, is make a good product and treat people right. And in all the corporations I've been around, that's the greatest mission statement I've ever seen. So we got permission from Mike Lapp to steal it for us too, because that's what we want to be all about. We want to make good products and treat everybody right. And what happens is your business just reciprocates from that and just grows and grows as a result of that. So we've been active in the shed business since around 1982 in Lancaster, back when everybody thought Lancaster was the world of sheds. That's really where it kind of started in this country, and then sort of blew up in the South and the rest of the country later than that, with treated buildings and the whole rent-own thing, and which you're all real familiar with. So what we set out to do here at Haley Paint is, I know from my experience in the past, we never wanted to be a one-trick pony and just do paint and that's it and have a limited product line. So we're always trying new stuff. So we wanted to diversify to strengthen ourselves within this industry, but we didn't want to over-diversify. So we thought that equipment is the best way to make us more powerful within the shed business. And all the equipment we manufacture has our products going through it, whether it's spray foam insulation or polyurea, paint, stains, urethanes. So you can go to the next panel. So in all our experience with OEM coatings, OEM stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer, we've really learned everything from our customers. So I put these together, and I got this from an enterprise software company where they want to sell you software that'll actually help you do all this stuff, because I thought it was really good. And number one's really important, which is evaluate your workflow. And I think the key to American manufacturing success is inline manufacturing, which most shed builders do. They start with the floor and the building just goes right down the line. And in inline manufacturing, you want to try to avoid as many workarounds as possible. And as we go through this presentation, you'll see that we're trying to address that, because workarounds, where you have to stop production to paint trim, or you have to stop production for something else and get a fork truck to move things, that's sort of the enemy of efficiency in manufacturing, which really slows your business down. Investing in employee training is, we're all struggling with employees over the past 3-4 years, and I don't know when that's ever going to get better. But one of the things we do when we manufacture equipment is we also install it and we help you service it. We tell you how to operate it, how to clean it, and we reinforce it. And one of the really important things, which is on the first panel, which we'll talk about later if you stop by our booth, is we also have a dealer program, so that if you're getting into spray foam insulation with us, or you're getting into polyurea for floors, we have a whole dealer program where we go out. We have 11 salespeople where we go out to your dealers and teach them how to sell those products. And we have all kinds of nifty sales aids, which we'll show you. So obviously conducting preventive maintenance. One of the things that we set out to do when we hired our engineering team is we want to make really good products that are solid, that'll last for many, many years, that you won't have to replace. They're not cheap, and they don't wear out. A lot of the spray equipment we use in our flat line and our inline systems is the Merker pump by Graco, and that's going to last 30 years. We have them all over Lancaster County that are 30 years old. So keeping your manufacturing plant organized is, I think that's something that most shed builders are really good at, but we want to help you get better at that with equipment. And reducing material waste with the government poking around and not really knowing what they're doing when they go into certain shed builders and ask them how much paint they're spraying, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're just government bureaucrats. But reducing material waste is really important, because even though latex paint, water-based paint, that waste is very innocuous, it's inert as soon as it dries out. Just having a lot of waste around is not good for your business, whether it's wood scraps or anything. So we have systems where you can literally make your waste stream de minimis to almost nothing, where you don't have to wash out spray guns, and that's also a workaround if you think about it. So so we're going to start off with the next. These are our wall mount sprayer systems, which we manufacture and install, and they're really doing well. We're about in our 5th year of it, and I think we've probably installed about 150 of them around the country. So we're going to get up Mike Bond to talk about it. Mike's been with me for over 30 years. You might recognize him, so don't boo him. Come on up, Mike.
Good morning, everyone. Like Bob said, my name is Mike Bond. I've been with the Haley Company for about 32 years. Been in the paint business for 47 years, so I follow Bob's footsteps. We've been around the paint business for a pretty long time, so we've seen a lot of things. We've made mistakes, but we've repaired those mistakes, and we think that we're on the right path to making everything as efficient as possible. Like Bob said, with the inline systems now, this kind of birthed itself from, I was at a shed builder one time, way back in the 80s, in the 90s. And he asked me, is there any way that I can take my pump and do 2 colors with it? So we just kind of scratched our heads and thought, well, sure, we might be able to do that because there's no pressure at the bottom. Yeah, we'd be able to just use plumbing fittings and that type of thing. So we hooked up this rig 2-color system, and it worked. So that was kind of the birth of multi-colors going out of one pump, or what you see there, and what many of you guys have a setup like this, where you have multiple reels, multiple guns, multiple colors, and you're using 1 pump or 2 pumps, 3 maybe, for depending on how many colors you have. So that's kind of how that came about, and we started to refine the system. And if you have a system like this, you know what I'm talking about. We refined it to the point where we have a minimum number of pumps. We have, maximum number of colors going through that pump. Just to start off with some of the bullet points, the reliability of these pumps are just tremendous. A setup like this with these pumps like this are 10 times more reliable. The pumps last longer by doing it something like this. I know a lot of people have used electric pumps. Maybe you still do over the time. We do in certain places. We do use electric pumps. But the reliability over the course of, say, 10, 15 years, you may end up having to replace that pump several times. Is this on? You may have to replace that pump several times, where something like this will last a long time. So when you invest in this type of equipment, you're investing in the long term, not something that you'll use for a couple of years, throw it over the fence and, have to grab another one and buy another one and start over again, basically. So you're looking at long-term reliability with this spray system. Yeah, again, less wear over time, low maintenance cost. These are air powered. They are airless pumps, but they're air powered. These air powered pumps do have a longer lifespan, and one of the reasons is a little bit of technical thing here is that the small electric pumps have a small cylinder, so it has a short stroke. Well, if you're familiar with these pumps, and many of you are, when you run that pump, that cylinder is moving up and down many, many, many times a minute. Where these larger pumps have a longer stroke, so there's less wear on the equipment because that stroke is again, it's a longer stroke, so that thing doesn't cycle as many times. So over the course of 10 years, you're looking at a lot of strokes with these smaller pumps as compared to this system where you have a longer stroke, so you have less wear and tear on the equipment. Saves time. It's very easy to change colors. With this system, you're looking at just basically a few levers. You turn one color off, turn another color on, turn that color off, turn this color on, so you can quickly change colors as opposed to maybe taking the siphon tube out of a bucket and going from bucket to bucket and carrying a bucket over here and that type of thing. So the changing color process has become very easy by doing this. The neat and compact, obviously, we all look for storage space. I mean, you look at a wall and you think, wow, I don't have enough room for this, I don't have enough room for that. This kind of keeps everything in one spot. So you have all your spray equipment in one area, you have all your buckets in one area. You can, we've altered this many times to where we have the pumps and the reels in two different locations so that number one, you don't have the overspray going on your pump equipment and that type of thing. And another thing would be convenience. Wherever your guy's spraying, he can have the spray hoses or tubes, or whatever you want to call it, be directed right to where he wants to spray. You might have a spray booth and that type of thing and have the equipment in some other wall or something. So it is neat, it's compact. It keeps all your paint in one area, so you know exactly which colors are which and that type of thing. And one of the things also, it does reduce waste. You can keep these pumps, I call it hot. You can keep paint in these pumps. Obviously, you want to turn your pressure off just in case you have a hose blow or something, but you want to turn your air compressor off, the air supply to the pump. But you can keep paint in these lines because it is a closed system. You don't have to worry about the paint drying up in the lines. So you can go the next day, turn your air on, and you're ready to go. You're ready to paint. So, and as far as being able to keep paint in the lines, that refers to the daily cleanup and the flushing. It's not really required. So you don't have a lot of waste. And as Bob was saying, every now and then you'll get a government official kind of poking their nose in places, and they want to know what that is and what this is. And you have a bucket of waste there. It kind of raises flags. Not that these guys know what it is, because most of them don't. We've experienced that. But at the same time, just to have something there that raises a flag, you don't want to do that. So with this type of system, you don't really have a lot of flush out. If you're changing colors, you may flush the pump out at some point in time, but you don't have a massive amount of waste sitting around your shop because you can keep the paint in the lines and just switch it over from color to color. By doing that, some guys will just go ahead and switch it over and spray some color out until the new color comes through, or however it works for you. Some guys will spray the whole shed with as they just changed over, and maybe come back around it with a second coat or whatever, and covers that first coat. But so you don't have the waste sitting around, and it's a very efficient system. So I know some of you guys probably have a system like this, and if you do, it's great. If not, stop by and we'll tell you everything about it.
Wait, stay up here.
Okay.
For questions.
Sure.
We're going to have questions at the end. We're going to try to, we have about 45 minutes, so we're going to get through everything and we'll answer questions for you. So the next piece of equipment is called high volume, low pressure. And we engineered this. We've had it out for about 2 years now, and we've sold about 70 of them. More and more portable building owners, manufacturers are making occupied buildings, whether it's cabins, workhouses, offices, garages. So spray foam has gotten bigger in both the north and the south. The south to be able to cool the buildings off and keep moisture out of the bottom of the building. And of course, in the north, keep the building warm and do the same things as moisture. So the high volume, low pressure, our team's going to, a couple more folks from our team are going to talk about it. And once again, this is one of those pieces of equipment that we sell you, we install it, we teach you how to use it, we teach you how, we have maintenance manuals, we have parts manuals on it. And most importantly, we have a dealer program, whether you're selling just off your factory or you have dealer lots, we'll teach your sales force how to sell the product. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark Gerace and Justin Essery, two of our sales folks.
So as Bob said, my name is Mark. This is Justin. A little bit about myself, just like Mike. I mean, I started with Sherwin-Williams. I was with Sherwin-Williams for about 20 years. And over that time, I got to meet Bob. And once I left Sherwin-Williams, I thought, I'm done with paint. But Bob kind of drug me back in. So 15 years later, now I'm with Bob. So I've been in this business for 35 years. So just like Mike, it's, we've kind of seen and done it all. So
My name is Justin Essery. I've been with Haley Paint a little over 5 years now, and learned a lot about paint and a lot about a lot of different things. So it's exciting, and thank you guys for being here. I guess we'll talk a little bit about foam. Let me go ahead and start.
Good.
So a little bit about our high volume, low pressure system is you can apply it inside in your shop. It mixes through a tip rather than a high pressure where it kind of collides and you have to clear your shop out there. So what this allows you to do is you can spray your foam while everyone else is building, painting, doing whatever they want to do. So that's pretty cool. The mobility. So we have these systems on a cart. I think it's a 3x6 aluminum cart with casters. So you can push it around your shop. If you want to spray in one bay, what I like to tell guys is you can just disconnect your nail gun or so, just hook it right up to the system. That guy can spray foam in his booth, disconnect it, push it to another bay. That guy can do the same thing, which is pretty neat. Okay, we already talked about that. So this will allow you also to spray at 67 cents a board foot at 1 inch, which is pretty incredible. So if some of you guys are already hiring out that to be done, you guys know that you do have to clear the shop out. You have to wait a little bit, maybe a week, 2 weeks or more even for them to come do it on their schedule, right? So this will allow you to spray it immediately and put a little bit more money, in your pocket per se. I guess I'll turn the rest over if I left out anything. And also, we will have questions at the end there. So you want to say anything, Mike?
Well, and that, like Justin said, I mean, the reason why we kind of started with this was as we would go around the shed builders, we would see buildings sitting outside, and we'd say, hey, what this building's doing out there, and guys would say, hey, I'm waiting for the foam guy to get here. So we kept thinking, well, hey, we can do this. Why don't we offer something to help you guys be basically more efficient? So now instead of waiting for the guy, you got to call him. I'll be there in a week, or I need you to have 3 or 4 buildings ready. Like Justin said, you're able to do this basically on your time. So gives you a better opportunity to schedule things better. Another, what we decided was HVLP trailer. Essentially, the trailer is basically, like Justin said, it's the same system, just that we customize and make the trailer. So you can mobilize, you can take it mobile, whereas if you have multiple shops, you can drive the trailer to that shop. Everything's self-contained. It comes with a inverter, comes with an air compressor, comes with a mini split system to keep heat or air conditioning in there. So it just gives if you have multiple shops the opportunity that this can travel and you can get to place and make it easier for you. Same thing if you just wanted to keep it at your shop. It's something you can keep outside. You can, when you're ready to use it, You just kind of bring it in, or just run the hose from the lot into the shop. So we just made it basically just another way for you guys, if whatever your situation is, to make it easier for you.
And we do have, in our booth, we have the trailer set up and everything with the mini split in it, toolbox. Swing by the booth, check that out. It's really neat.
Thanks, guys. Stay up. So next is, so this is our latest invention. Like I said, a lot of buildings, more and more shed builders are building cabins, and they're occupied buildings as part of their diversification within the industry. And they're doing a lot of different substrates on those cabins, whether it's D-log or LP lap, or a lot of interior tongue and groove. And we see all this going on. And one of the things I talked about earlier was the great workaround. What's the bottleneck? What is the job that people don't like doing? And in Lancaster County, what we saw was painting trim. Where up there, they paint trim by hand on chicken wire. And down south, they paint the whole shed and then face roll the trim with a 4-inch roller. So it's a little bit of a workaround, and that's when we designed this thing. And we just introduced it yesterday. So I'm going to let Mark Roth and Jack Reisinger, Jack's our engineer, one of our engineers, and they're going to tell you all about it.
Good morning. My name is Mark Roth. I've been in the coating industry for a long time. I've actually been with Haley for 27 years now. So the longevity that kind of you're seeing with all the sales reps is tried and true. It's not our first rodeo, so we've seen a lot of issues out there. And Jack is kind of the creator and mad scientist, if you will, for all the equipment that we've gone over. And Flatline being one of the newest in our arsenal of production equipment, we see in listening to the shed builders, we hear a lot of the needs and what guys need to kind of increase production and increase the value that they can get from their businesses and expediting the flow through. So the fact that it coats all three sides of the trim and siding, one of the benefits of the unit is you can adjust the spray heads, and Jack's taken a lot of the shed guys use the Graco rack systems, the rack 10s with the reverse-clean tips. So this equipment actually has three guns with rack guards and tips, so you can change from all kinds of substrates and change the settings extremely quickly. Cleaning out the tips and changing tips, going from paint to like a 517 tip, going to a urethane or something finer with like a 214. So expediting the process, speed. Changing the fan patterns, as well as going from like a D-log with a stain to something that's going to be a wider, coating up to 16-inch material. So again, all sides can be done with that 16-inch material. Most guys are going to be doing 16 feet of lap siding, D-log siding. The wood, you can do stains with this equipment. And allowing the pre-finishing to go through at 225 feet per minute. So you can adjust it with at 0 to up to 205 linear feet per minute. So this machine can keep up with production. And the guy that's going to be catching the trim coming out the other side, he's got to have 2 cups of coffee in the morning when he's going to be catching that. So he's got to be on his toes. So you can basically rack and stack trim that's coming out of that. And we're big fans of there's no real drying system on this equipment, but as it's coming out, you can rack it, stack it, and then we're big fans of forced air. So you can get forced air on those individual racking systems and dry that coating. And we're still fans of forced air. Still forces that moisture out of that film build. So it dries the coating at a much extremely faster rate. So obviously it's going to speed up your production. It's going to coat the trim. There's no need for face rolling. In my opinion, trim that's actually pre-finished gives you a much cleaner look. Your edges are coated. And a lot of guys, they'll pre-finish their trim in bulk, and then they'll tack it up on their buildings and then just face roll it later or brush it later just to adjust the nail heads. It can be tied to your existing wall-mounted systems, like the guys were talking about having a lower manifold and an upper manifold. On those systems, you can actually put a upper manifold right there. So all your 12, if you have a 12-color inline, you can have that going right into the system. So adjusting the colors, again, expediting the process, speeding up the time to change colors. The overspray is very limited. We have a bucket containment system, so you're actually catching a lot of the material that's being sprayed in a downdraft system. So you have a fan that's sucking everything out there, going through a filter. But prior to the filter, there's a 5-gallon bucket in there, which is catching all your retane and all your coating that's being oversprayed down there. So you can actually pull that out, reuse it, efficiency, which creates a lot of the waste, less waste going in there, so you can keep that job rolling. And of course, no overspray, because the fan is being sucked down there. What's not being caught in the bucket is going into a filtration system, and then it's being evacuated through the back, through the top into your ceilings. So again, no need for face rolling. So if I'm missing anything, again, Jack's the engineer that designed the equipment. He can answer the more detailed, specific questions. So.
So we want to open up to questions. If you have any questions, we'll try and answer them for you. We'd like you to stop by later. I'm sorry? Okay.
On the flat lining system, how much buildup do you have on the inside of that system? I mean, just all that overspray build up in there, whereas the draft system pulling most of it out, it's not really building up.
A little bit of both. Go ahead.
With the downdraft system that we have, there's an opening, and the unit is at the booth. Feel free to stop by the booth. But there's an opening there that the fan is going to draw all that overspray down there. And the bulk of that overspray is going to be caught into that 5-gallon pail that's directly underneath that. And then surrounding that area, it's actually sitting on a filtration system, which is a standard Binks filter. So that can be replaced if needed. But the majority of the overspray actually goes right down in the machine. And on that control panel, but obviously it controls the line speed, and it also controlled the fan speed. Anything else we need to add?
Oh, no, I would just add what Mark was touching on, excuse me, is for that kind of the cabinet, is over time it's going to naturally get overspray in there. It's all going to depend on how you have your gun set up. You might have a day where a gun was misaligned and it's going to spray sideways, but for the most part, it's going to try to catch as much as it can in that bucket. For the most part, yes.
We have some people in pre-finish that put some OSB around the edge, and it's just scrap, and they throw it out after. Did you have another question?
Yeah, R value of the ledge of this.
Yeah, so the R value is 6 to 7 R value on that, and what that does is that will not allow airflow through it. Will also keep water from going through there, so it's going to protect your floors, also your walls as well. And there's no ingredients in there that bees, termites, or anything. There's nothing in there for them. No nutritional value.
That thing is all pneumatic. You got electric in the trailers, or I heard you see you had power over there. What part of it's electric? As far as running.
Yeah. So there's a generator. Includes a generator. Includes an air compressor, which will run there's a Mr. Cool heating and air unit in there as well. And then that generator will run the lights, where the air compressor will also run the system.
What kind of temperature is required to spray that thing? Is it spray when it's 30 degrees outside?
Yeah, if you have the trailer, what's really good about the trailer is it does keep that inside temperature warm. Foam likes to be sprayed between 80 and 90 degrees. So if it's 30 outside and you have that trailer, I don't think you have anything to worry about. You know, it stays warm in there. And what Jack and Jeff, our engineers there, what they've done to the trailer, they've taken all the walls off. I think they've added 1.5 inches extra, and then they sprayed closed cell foam inside the whole entire trailer, re-walled it, so it's really well insulated.
So if I had shit sitting in the yard and it's 30 degrees outside, how does it affect the curing of the foam itself? You're spraying in the whole shed. Does it affect the actual curing of the foam with it being cold outside?
No, it doesn't. So usually, if you have a substrate, let's say that's 30 to 40 degrees, what we train guys to do is to do a tack coat. So you do a real light coat. So as foam reacts, it throws off heat. So by doing that tack coat, you can kind of help warm the surface. You want to have it 40 degrees or higher. You're gonna lose yield. So you're gonna end up putting on more product. But as far as it reacting, it's still gonna cure out like it should.
We've already done substrates where the metal buildings where it was literally 0 degrees outside. So obviously that metal was 0 degrees. So we've done that, just what Jack was saying, that tack coat. You put a real thin coat of foam on there, and the exothermal reaction of the A and the B chemical warms that panel up extremely quickly. So now you went from 0 degrees to at least 50 degrees. And then you can go to the next one, do another tack coat, come back, and then you can put your full 1 or 2 inches on that without any issues.
Would that trailer period also advise to, like, go out and spray, metal buildings for customers, say, a 40 by 50 shop? Or, you know, because we sell a lot of carports. People are asking us all the time for installation of carports. And we talking to a lot of different, installation contractors around the time, they spray these things. It's a fortune. I don't know how much money that they're making off of it, but, you know, customers seem to shy away from it because it costs so much. I don't know if this.
You mean, are you worried about the adhesion to the metal, or?
No, he's worried about how much yield per set.
How much product I can carry on there, it would be something that I can carry that product in a 40 by 50 building with 12-inch legs and, you know, doing single walls.
Well, a set of drum foam is going to go 6,000 square feet at 1 inch.
And you can keep 2 extra sets in the trailer and still be under your weight limit.
Talk about the heated hose and the blankets too, because you talked about 90 degrees.
Yeah. To circle back to kind of the heat question, there's also a heated hose that comes with both the trailer as well as the cart. So there's heated drum blankets that stay around 90 degrees, as well as the heated hose. We bump it up so that way if it's laying across the cold ground, it kind of helps retain that heat, because the fluid temperature, as Justin said, likes to be around 90 degrees, 90 to 100.
And there have been issues where if you can't get the drum stock up to 90 degrees, say you turn it on in the morning and it was 70, and you have to spray that building at 10 and it's just not 90, it's 80, you can adjust the hose temperature. You can turn the hose up to even 120 so that you know that you're going to have that warmer foam coming through there. The hoses are 75 feet, so you're running foam at 75 feet, which is going to heat up from that 80 degree.
How much is that system in the trailer? If I were out the door with a system like that. I'll go see.
Yeah, so stop by. There's literally a trailer in the booth. Please come up. We have all kinds of.
I don't really look at too much of it.
But the trailer itself right now, with one, either the foam or the polyurethane, is 44 or 5.
Liz, did you have a question?
Yes, I was asking about, wanted to ask about R value too. Does multi-layer increase the R value?
Yes, every inch is 6.2. So if you do 2 inches, you just double it. And so when we say board feet, it's the same thing. So a set does 6,000 board feet. So if you're accustomed to 2 inches, just cut that in half. Or 3 inches, it would be 2,000 square feet.
If you're, like a lot of cabin manufacturers in Oregon, let's say they need 49 R value, what they do is they put down a base of our closed cell phone, and then they'll put that over top of that, to get you the, up in the ceiling to get the real thickness. Because
What about, does that, we're always concerned about insulation against the metal roof without asking, so I guess, does that create any issues, or is that solving the issue?
So it all depends on how they call it the building envelope. They call it the building envelope of your building. So if you have like up north, we have crawl space, or in our attics, typically the floor of the attic is insulated. So you wouldn't want to spray foam the roof deck of that, because now you've just isolated an unconditioned space. So if you have unvented soffit or an unvented building, you can spray the roof decking without issue, as long as there's some sort of conditioning happening there. Or if it's not going to be, or if you're not introducing a lot of moisture into the building. Like if it's going to be an occupied space, you would want some way of pulling that moisture out of the building. Or if there was, let's say, a propane furnace, something that's introducing moisture into the building, you need some way for that moisture to get out. So that's the idea behind vented soffit with like a ridge cap. But if you were going to build a building and you were going to leave the floor of the attic uninsulated, you could then insulate the roof decking, have a sealed soffit, have your sealed roof, and it would condition the entire space. I don't know if that helps answer.
You're referring to an attic.
Well, I'm saying attic, but roof decking. So for your metal roof, it would all depend on how your soffit is. If it's sealed, then yes, you could spray your roof decking with it without issue. Or your metal, I'll call it.
what's required, what's procedures of cleanup, what's required of taking care of maintaining that system and storage?
The HVLP for foam?
No, you can just leave. So I think Justin touched on it. So the idea behind spray foam is you have your A and your B, and when it gets to the gun, it goes through a disposable tip, and that's the only mixing that occurs. So when you're done, you leave that dirty tip in there, and everything else has stayed separate. So you can just push it off to the side and wait till the next time you use it, put in a new tip, and you're ready to go. For prolonged storage, let's say you were just getting started and you weren't going to use it, if you weren't going to use it within 2 weeks, is just turn the system on, spray the foam for maybe 10 to 15 seconds to keep it moving through the lines. Because the A side of the two-part product is the hardener of the two. If it sits in the line long enough, it'll start to crystallize, and then you run the risk of getting blockages and things. So that's why we say if you're not going to use it it's going to sit for longer than 2 weeks, to just turn it on and spray it just to keep fluid moving through the lines.
The tips, are they, you can't clean those up and reuse them, or?
No, you can't. They're disposable tips.
When you store
Yes.
it,
Mhm.
when you're storing food in this machine, you have to keep it at the 80 to 90 to 100 degrees. How do you store it?
So you could store it just above freezing. Now I will say, because it relies on the drum blankets to heat the fluid up, if you were going to use it the next day, you would want to plug it in so it would have time to warm up, because heating up 55 gallons of material takes some time. But if you weren't going to use it for those 2 weeks, by all means, as long as it's not freezing, you're fine to just unplug it and push it off to the side.
We see a lot of builders that just have the HVLP unit, but they use it every other day. They'll build a hot box within their plant, insulated, have a little heater just for that unit, push it in there. It's 75 feet of hose.
Mhm.
So.
The multicolored paint wall mount system, you said that you don't have to worry about cleanup or flushing the lines out. How long can paint sit in those lines before it needs to be addressed? If it does sit, say, after too long, what's the process in cleaning it out where you don't get any gunk or overspray or like clogging?
Oh, hi.
Where it's gonna make the paint quality decrease?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I sort of hear you, but in the multicolor systems, I actually, the worst case scenario is we tore an old system out, Mark and I, and that system hadn't been used in probably over a year, and the paint was still wet inside the lines. Now, just like a water hose or a water line in your house, if you don't use something, if it's nothing moving, then how it builds up. It will eventually do that. It'll narrow that paint hose down a little bit, but that's pretty severe. That would almost be like if you abandoned the shop for a while and came back to a year later and wanted to run it. Like I said, we tore old pumps out that the paint was still wet in there. As far as degrading the quality of the paint, I don't think so. Because you're not introducing air in there. Obviously, it's not a vacuum or anything, but if you're not introducing an active air source into there, that paint will last in there a long time. I've never seen that be an issue, to be honest with you.
The standard answer, though, is they leave it in all year. That's what we see around. Now, urethanes, because they dry hard and fast, we don't encourage that. So, yes, sir.
Secondary question, that system, is it primarily fed through buckets or drums of paint?
Whether it's drums or buckets,
It feeds from both.
Running those types of multicolored systems?
yeah, you can use drums, or we basically build a system for your shop, knowing if you're using drums or pails or whatever, and it's easily adjusted for drums or pails. If you wanted to go to, drums of colors that you use most often, you could do that very easily with just a few tweaks and the immersion hose and that type of thing on how to get paint into the pump. You can do that very easily whether you're using pails or drums.
The operating pressure for the air system that supplies the propellant, do you have it regulated down, or how's it work?
Yeah, the system has a regulator on it. We like to see those pumps run at about 80 psi, somewhere between 70 and 80. If you get any lower than that, those pumps will tend to stall in either the up or the downstroke. So we say maybe 80 pounds. These are the pumps that we use are 30-to-1 ratio. So if you're putting 80 pounds into that motor, you're getting 2,400 psi of fluid pressure out of there at 80 pounds, which is more than enough to atomize any of these latex coatings. The latex coating that we're using, you probably have to have about 1,800 psi to atomize it, between 18 and 2,000. So you have plenty of room in there. So really, you have to have a compressor that's able to supply 80 pounds of air pressure, 80 pounds of psi to the pump. Anyone else?
Did we solve all the problems of the world?
Most of them.
Oh, there's one.
Does humidity affect the ability to spray foam?
It does to a degree. I mean, if it's a humid day, you're going to go through more tips is probably the biggest indicator of what you'll see on a humid day, is that your tips are going to be changing out, and it's all going to come down to well, I'll back up. The other issue would be on a substrate. So if you had a metal building you were going to spray on a humid day and there was enough humidity that you could wipe it off, you're not going to get good adhesion. And what you'll run the risk of is kind of developing a pocket in there. So rather than it'll still spray foam and it'll look fine, but because it won't have that adhesion, you run the risk of moisture getting back there.
Is there concern, somebody put a separation element like house wrap or something underneath that metal, and they're gonna spray foam, is that a better application versus trying to spray the back of that metal, which if you're at a place panel, what you gonna do?
So I would actually encourage you to spray right to the metal, because again, if you have a house wrap that you're going to spray, you're not getting that tight adhesion, or I'm sorry, that tight insulation. You're just kind of creating a pocket in between the two. So like on a metal building, I know a lot of times what guys will do is they'll cut that house wrap off and then spray directly on the metal.
Does that give that metal a little bit more impact resistance, I guess, too, by having that on there?
It does. Like the guy said, we have one of the trailers at the booth, and if you've ever seen an enclosed trailer and hit the side of it, it sounds like a tin can. Whereas if you hit ours, it sounds like a concrete, or it feels like a brick wall, because we spray foam the inside of the trailer to 3 inches. So yeah, it adds quite a bit of strength to to whatever you're spraying.
closed cell, even at 1 inch on the interior of a building, really increases the rigidity of that structure as well.
I had a little experience down in Florida, in Tallahassee with a builder down there. Did all metal buildings. And one of the things we were talking about earlier about, the metal being cold, and they were talking about putting a tack coat on, and that really helped. I mean, when I was in Tallahassee, it was January, and it gets cold in Tallahassee. And there was probably 50 degrees later on in the day, but early morning, that metal was really cold. So we put a tack coat on it, and you could feel the heat coming off of that building. So that was like the way to go with that. So we sprayed that. But when he picked that building up, and he wasn't familiar, the builder wasn't familiar with foam, or they had never foamed a metal building before. And he told me when he picked that building up, he could tell just from picking the building up how rigid it had become because of the insulation in there. Not rigid enough that it was, damaging or anything, but at the same time, he said that building just, to him, it gained strength. He could tell the difference just by picking the building up. So it does, just like Mark said, it just creates that strength of that building. It didn't wobble, didn't have that metal sound or that type of thing, and he was impressed with that. So. I'm sorry, what was that?
Do we need that for the paint system?
Yeah, we have to have agitator along for storage.
For drums? What typically the customers that buy drums for us, they buy it in drums for their high moving items. So no, but a lot of the shops do it anyway. Particularly on our white, pretty heavy. We design our coatings to be high build. We do a lot of two-story buildings, and the painters want to go around the building wet on wet and really build up a lot of millage. So some of the coatings like white are really thick. So yeah, we have little air mixers that they put on there. And then the slower moving colors or specialty colors, they just buy in costs. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Does humidity affect the curing of the foam? Sometimes would it make it where it would cure thicker, or will it expand more before it actually would dry? It seems like the stuff, foam, it always seems to me, it's slow, it'll expand to a point and it kind of stops. But if it's slow curing, it seems like it may expand a little more.
So if it's cold outside, it'll take longer to develop hardness, as well as you run the risk of losing yield. Because it needs that heat to kind of throw off and do its full expansion, if you're spraying a colder area, it's going to take longer to reach that temperature, therefore losing some yield. As far as humidity, it doesn't impact it.
So it does expand more if it cures slow.
It does not, no.
Does that affect metal paint? Does that affect any paint warranties on metal or corrosion or anything prematurely maybe going to take place?
As far as with spray foam? Yes. I don't believe so, no. We could do some digging on it, but I know from talking to spray foam manufacturers, there was a big movement for shingle guys for a long time. They said you can't spray directly on the roof decking because it's going to void our warranty. And I know this is getting into residential, and they said it for, I think, from like the 1990s to the 2000s. And it was because they had such a good relationship with bad insulation guys. And then they came out and said, well, you can spray the roof decking. It's not an issue. So we could do some digging just to be sure, but as far as I know, it doesn't.